Welcome to today's presentation by Education USA. Uh, it is called What is the Difference Between a Master's of Science and a Master's of Engineering? This is a very specific topic, and it's going to be very helpful when trying to assist students, or if you're a student yourself, trying to figure out what path might be best for you. Education USA is funded by the U.S. Department of State. We help students worldwide understand the admissions process to U.S. schools. At the end of this recording, you'll see some information about following up with Education USA in Canada. And of course, if you're not from Canada, then you can go to educationusa.state.gov to find your local advisor. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and introduce our professional expert in the topic at hand today. Dina Iskaros is the Assistant Director of Graduate Admissions at Stevens Institute of Technology, and we're super happy to have her with us today. Thank you so much, Dina, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Janika. It's a pleasure for me to be here with you today. It is, in fact, a very specific topic and one that we get asked about quite a lot at Stevens Institute of Technology and at other institutions where I have worked previously. The education system in the United States is a pretty complicated system, so because we just wanted to make it a little bit more complicated, we decided to throw at the students at pretty much the same degree, but with a little bit of a different standing. So in today's presentation, I will be giving you the definition of a Master's of Engineering, the definition of a Master's of Science, and then we will talk about the key differences between the Master's of Science and the Master's of Engineering, and specifically what are the requirements for admission to either of these programs. And then we will touch a little bit about the job prospects, because it really, the job prospects, I think, also depends on where you are and what you hope to achieve out of obtaining this master's degree. And then we will also talk about a terminal degree, or the term that we often use for terminal degrees in the United States. So with that, the Master's of Engineering degree, it can be abbreviated in one of two ways. MENG, just straightforward, or M.ENG. And then or it can be actually a Master's of Technology degree. But the Master's of Engineering can either be an academic or a professional master's degree in the field of engineering. So this is specifically for those engineering programs that you are interested in moving up the ladder in. For the Masters of Engineering, it is generally a professional degree, which basically is offered through coursework, which is an alternative to the research-based Masters of Science degree, which can be offered at the same university for the same major, pretty much. For the Masters of Science, the Masters of Science is generally the most popular in the United States. So most programs will just have the abbreviation, the MS or MSc for the Masters of Science, and it is a type of master's degree awarded by the universities in the United States and in many other countries, which is actually interesting because you do want to also pay attention to the country that you are coming from, what this degree will hold, and what it will mean for you in that specific country. So this is also something that you're going to need to keep in mind. One of the main things I will tell you is that there is really no clear-cut answer between a Master's of Science and a Master's of Engineering. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we do sometimes like to complicate things, and this is one of those scenarios where this could be a little bit of a complication, in the sense that it really depends on the university that you are applying to and the university of interest to you as to what they qualify as a Master's of Engineering or versus a Master's of Science. For example, at Stevens Institute of Technology, you could have pretty much the same program offered as a Master's of Science and as a Master's of Engineering. And to go a little bit further, even though we talk about the Master's of Science as being the program or the major that really, or I should say the degree, I'm sorry, that really revolves around research, that is not exactly true of all situations. We also do offer, and there are other institutions as well that do offer the Masters of Engineering and allow their students to do research. However, in most situations, the Masters of Science is really, in terms of the admission criteria, is open to all students from the life sciences, engineering, and other backgrounds. So you could have a student that is doing that is perhaps that did an engineering background, electrical engineering background, who wants to go into computer science. Then it is not quite the same field of engineering, but they could do the Masters of Science. In terms of the Masters of Engineering, most of the time you are going to be required to have an engineering background. And a lot of the times it will go a little bit further in saying that not just the same, not just having an engineering background, but also having a strong background in the math or a high quantitative GRE score. So when it comes to the GRE score, you have the Masters of Science, which most of the time the institutions will take a look at the overall GRE score. At the Masters of Engineering level, they really do care more about your quantitative score. So if you can score high into that quantitative score, then you probably have a good chance of also getting into that Masters of Engineering. Just like we said, it really revolves around, in most situations, it revolves around research, 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 which means that the Masters of Science is really where you will be able to do most of the research projects. It is also the area of study or the degree that you will want to get in the event that you would like to move forward and obtain a PhD. Through the Masters of Engineering, again, just like we mentioned earlier, it is really coursework with a technical concentration. But again, this really depends on the university that you are applying to. So I would highly recommend that when you are looking at the process of studying in the United States, that you really take a look at every single institution and the type of institution that you are applying to. Now, in terms of job outcomes, most of the time, the MS could qualify for research positions or quality engineer positions. Whereas the Masters of Engineering is really for those who want to stay in that specific area of industry, but grow within that area in industry. The master's degree generally takes 2 years to complete. The Masters of Science, most Masters of Science degrees range anywhere between 30 credits to 36 credit hours in the United States. And depending on the university, if you are going to a university where the full-time attendance is 9 to 12 credits, for example, if you end up taking 12 credits per semester, you can realistically complete that program in 3 semesters rather than in 4 semesters. But of course, with the Masters of Science degree, if you are going to be doing research, or if you will be working with a faculty member towards research, especially if you will want to take that research a step further with your throughout a PhD program, you really want to make sure that you are giving it its time. And you probably would be required to perhaps stay the 4 semesters rather than complete the program in the 3 semesters. The Masters of Engineering, most of the time, since it is coursework, it is pretty much strictly 30 to 36 credit hours as well. You would, at that point, don't have the element of research most of the time that would require you to perhaps work extra hours with a faculty member to conduct that research. Now, I wanted to bring you an example. This example happens to be from Stevens Institute of Technology, just because this is my area of expertise and this is the university that I know really well. But again, you will want to take a look at the different universities that you are interested in, and you will want to really do research on their website and through speaking with their administrative offices, such as the admissions office or the department itself that you're interested in. So as an example, the biomedical engineering program or the biomedical area major has two different segments. We have the biomedical engineering program, which is a master's of engineering, and then you have the the biomedical engineering, which is the master's of science, and then you have the bioengineering, which is the master's of engineering. So the bioengineering is really geared towards I think I might have confused that. The bioengineering is really geared towards the life sciences, which is really the Masters of Science. So it is for students not just from an engineering background, but who could perhaps be in any regular science background. Bioengineering students will most likely qualify for engineering positions in device or design companies, but could qualify for research positions or quality engineer positions. So this is really the program where students who are interested in doing a thesis or are interested in doing research would end up going for. If you strictly want the coursework and you really want to come in, do the courses, and get out, then it would be really the Masters of Engineering or the biomedical engineering. So with this program, it would focus more with the bioengineering program. It focuses more on the biomaterials tissue side. Again, it is more research oriented, and they generally accept a GRE quantitative score in the high 150s. So with that said, if you end up getting a quantitative score in perhaps 158 or 155, you probably could be considered for this program. Whereas the biomedical engineering program, which is the Masters of Engineering, is again really meant for students who are in industry. It is meant for students who are looking to grow within their industry. So it requires really the strong mathematical background, and it requires, of course, the engineering background as well, with the higher quantitative score. So I would probably say that in a place like Stevens, you probably would be required to have in the 158 and above, most likely the 160 and above in terms of the quantitatives. Now, in terms of job prospects, I have really found that for students who are graduating from from the Masters of Science or Masters of Engineering, they have really been able to achieve positions in all of these different companies. Now, this is, of course, based on statistics from our university, but of course, every single university or most universities should be able to give you the statistics that they have for their own students. Because at Stevens Institute of Technology, for example, you are not necessarily locked into any specific program in the sense that if you are interested in a Masters of Engineering, in 99% of the Masters of Engineering programs at Stevens, you are still able to do a thesis, you are still able to do research within the Masters of Engineering. However, in other universities, you might not be able to do that. So this is really, again, something that you will have to really do research on. And I think a lot of the universities that allow you to cross-train perhaps or do research at all levels, you probably would be able to obtain a more rounded view of the different companies that you can sign up with or get employed by. Now, of course, in terms of the Masters of Engineering, we have also found that many of our students were already employed. So for the Masters of Engineering, we find that many of the students perhaps are looking to go part-time because they do want to maintain that employment along with the program. Whereas the Masters of Science, you really are looking for students who are interested in that research and who could possibly want to further their studies in that area of research. And so you will find that most of those students happen to be full-time students. Now, I think it's important to discuss a little bit the information about terminal degrees because at certain institutions you will find that the Master's of Engineering is in fact a terminal degree. Based on my research, I was able to find, for example, that Cornell University out in Ithaca um, does consider the Masters of Engineering under the mechanical engineering program as a terminal degree. Goes to the same for Rochester Institute of Technology, where they consider the Masters of Engineering in some of their Masters of Engineering programs as in fact a terminal degree. So what does a terminal degree mean? Terminal degree just basically means that this is a degree, um, this is the highest level or the highest degree that you can achieve within a certain field. So what this means is that, as you can see here, for example, in architecture, for example, or the landscape architecture, this would be considered a terminal degree. So in a lot of situations, those terminal degrees are perhaps a PhD program. So a lot of our PhD programs are considered terminal degrees because this is the highest degree that you will be able to receive in a specific area of studies. This goes to be the same, for example, for for us here, for attorneys, the Juris Doctorate that we have in the United States. The Juris Doctorate is the highest degree that an attorney can receive, or someone who is looking to practice law can receive in the United States. So that is considered a terminal degree. So with that said, again, this is really a topic that is, I was hoping to give you a lot more detailed information, but it is a topic that really depends on the university that you're interested in. And if you walk away with anything from today's event, it is truly that you have to do your research in terms of the university that you are going for or the university that you are interested in, because a Master's of Engineering degree at one institution will mean something else versus another institution. As you can see here, for example, the Stevens Institute of Technology is what we call a STEM research university. This is the same for Rochester Institute of Technology. Rochester Institute of Technology is also a STEM university. They are about the same size, yet in essence, the Masters of Engineering within Rochester Institute of Technology is in fact considered a terminal degree, whereas at Stevens Institute of Technology, the Masters of Engineering in 99% of the cases is not considered a terminal degree. So students would then move on, if they should so wish, to a PhD or a doctorate degree after receiving that master's degree. However, if a student is really looking to classify that degree that he or she has received as a terminal degree, I think it would be important to make a note that which universities offer that as a terminal degree. So I also wanted to touch upon something that I don't want students to confuse a Master's of Engineering with, and that is really the degree of engineer. A degree of engineer is a higher level, in essence, from a Master's of Engineering. We often get students who are who basically are interested in a Master's of Engineering, but by accident will then apply for a degree of engineer, thinking that this is the program that they should be going to. So the degree of engineer is, in fact, a terminal degree across the board. It is the highest degree that you can receive within the engineering program, regardless of where you are. So the degree of engineer is usually more credits than a Master's of Engineering. And it really, there is no probably research element in most of the situations. It usually is just more coursework that the students would have to do. So please make sure that if you are interested in a Master's of Engineering, you find that those institutions that you are looking into offer both the Master's of Engineering and the degree of engineer, that you do note the difference between them. Most of the time with the degree of engineer, you will be required to either have a Master's of Science or a Master's of Engineering prior to entering that. So with that said, I really do want to make sure that every single student who hears today's short webinar, that they really start to do their research per the institution that they're interested in. And I think also speaking to the admissions office and to the faculty members at every single institution of interest to you is also something very important, because you will be able to learn, for example, within the Masters of Engineering and the Masters of Science, are there different concentrations that you are able to do? We often here in the United States have what is called concentrations. So sometimes in certain situations, those concentrations are in fact different for the Masters of Science majors or degree seekers versus the Masters of Engineering. So please make sure you do your research on the university of interest to you, and make sure that you ask them all the right questions in terms of what does that mean to you if you obtain a Master's of Science. Hi,
It looks like we lost Dina. So hopefully she'll be back in just a moment. But in the meantime, please feel free to put any questions in the chat that you have, because we're almost to the end of the presentation. Hello, we lost you.
can you see me now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, excellent. So I am certainly looking forward to answering any questions you might have. If you have any specific questions, please feel free to put them in the chat box. I will answer a question about funding for both a Master's of Science and a Master's of Engineering. Now, sometimes funding is also an issue, because when you are looking at a master's degree program in the United States, of course, funding is a big part of it. And some institutions do offer fellowships, of course. And so you will want to make sure that those fellowships will be equally distributed between the Masters of Science and a Masters of Engineering. So if they are not, you will want to ask the university of your choice if there are specific types of funding perhaps that are available for Masters of Science versus Masters of Engineering, since it carries the research element, or are they, whether you are in the Masters of Engineering or Masters of Science, it really does not matter, and it just depends on your merit overall. So that will also be a question that you will have to ask your institutions when they are ready to.
Well, I think you must have answered everybody's questions. So thank you for taking the time to go over that information with us. It's very helpful. And anything else you would like to add?
I think I have added pretty much everything that I can on this specific topic. There are so many different, areas that any student, of course, will want to look into when determining the universities that they're interested in the United States. And by all means, there are so many universities in the United States, as you all know. So I think one of the biggest things I tell my students is you really have to make sure that that university you're applying to is a good fit for you, and you are a good fit for them. So I think with that, any student that is interested, whether in a Master's of Science, Master's of Engineer, degree of Engineer, you really have to make sure that you take the time to do your research on that specific university, ask the questions, attend their specific webinars if they host webinars as well, and do connect with their faculty members. Because at the graduate level, I think faculty members are the biggest asset a student can have. If they are the right faculty members and if they're able to answer questions properly and are able to guide the student, then this is really worth $1 million.
Yeah, and that's great advice. And I always tell students to you also are never you're never going to know from a website what kind of additional funding a faculty member might have access to, because it changes from year to year. So if you find someone who is really in your field, then it's a good idea to reach out to them. And by in your field, I don't just mean engineering. I mean way more specific than that. And if you reach out to them, you might find that they're looking to hire a research assistant or have some additional funding stream that would not be noticeable anywhere else. So so that can be a good way to help find some funding.
Definitely.
So we have Dina's information here. Please feel free to follow up with her with any questions you have about engineering or her specific Institute of Technology. And then, of course, you always have me to reach out to. As promised, here's my information, my website, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the good stuff, as well as our next webinar. We're going to be talking about student athletes. Now, this is an undergraduate topic, so we're going to be jumping back to undergraduate for this one. And if you're interested, you can register there on the link highlighted on the screen. Thank you so much for your time today, Dina, and thank you to everybody who participated.
Thank you so much for having me here with you today.